Welcome to Marin Voices and Views. I'm Lawrence Strick. Our show tonight features two candidates for the newly drawn 2nd congressional seat. My co-host, Peter B. Collins, is working with one of the other candidates, and we don't believe it's appropriate for him to question any of the candidates. In the second segment, I will be talking to Dan Roberts, one of about 10 or 11 candidates seeking the job. However, in the first segment, my guest is Tiffany Renee. Ms. Renee was the first Latina elected to the Petaluma City Council in 2008. She currently serves as Petaluma's vice mayor. Tiffany is a native Californian. She grew up in Sacramento Valley in Fair Oaks. She is the first of her family to have gone to college, achieving a BA from Mills College and a master's degree from the California Institute of Integral Studies. She is the mother of 2 women, each going to nursing school, and she's helping them get through that. She's previously been a small business owner and represents Petaluma City Council on numerous regional boards. Welcome to Marin Voices and Views.
Thank you.
Tiffany, I read your biography, and all I could see is that you're a busy person. You're on the city council, you're the vice mayor, you've been a business owner, you got kids that you're helping get through school, and you pick up and start wanting to run for Congress. Where did that come from, and what's the motivating factor?
My family has always been very active in community and politics in some respects as well, and so it's sort of I feel a duty to represent my community and to be able to fight for justice and the needs of our community, and it's something I've been doing for the last 22 years in Sonoma County. And through that experience, I've seen the challenges grow deeper and deeper, and through this economic collapse that we've had, the challenges are even greater now, and the needs are even greater now. And so I'm really hoping to represent this district and fight for the needs of this district.
Well, you're not alone in wanting to represent the district, because I think there's 10 or 11 of you, and I think 9 or 8 of you are Democrats. How do you set yourself apart for some of the other folks in the race, and where do you see yourself as you relate to your other peers who are running?
Well, I think that the nation is really facing a lot of challenges around our political system, and as someone who's worked in local government, I have the experience to understand what the job is, where the needs are, yet I have a right-sized campaign where I'm really focusing on continuing to work within my district and within my community instead of focusing on fundraising, which is sort of the old paradigm of the political system, and it's something that I would like to change. I'm someone that's very interested in seeing public finance of elections. Our mayor, his first time elected, was elected through public financing, and I think it's a way to allow people to continue to work within their communities without having to focus on the fundraising and the political favors that go along with that.
The district now stretches, the new 2nd district, stretches from Sausalito, right by the Golden Gate Bridge, all the way up to, I think, Crescent City, essentially. And you're from kind of the south middle. I guess Petaluma's the south middle. How do you go about learning what's in the district and what the needs of the district are? What do you see as the needs of the district? And is there something that ties it all together, or is there a ribbon to tie around this district, or what?
Well, for me, it was the coast growing up. We spent a lot of time in Bodega Bay and on the Mendocino coast when I was young, camping, and we had a home there in Bodega Bay as well. And so I spent a lot of time in this area over the last 35, almost 40 years. And so I really have a sense of the natural resources of this district, the agriculture of this district, and the people of this district in the rural areas. Petaluma is sort of an urban yet rural community, and so having that experience of what those needs are has been very important in terms of learning about this new district, and I feel I can relate very deeply to all of the counties in the district. And so
do you spend time in your car going up and down the coast and hitting the Rotary clubs and just meeting all the folks? Is that what you've been doing?
Yeah, it's so we started this campaign in late July and have been putting a lot of miles on the car and going up on some of the back roads to the smaller areas, and then up and down the 101 to Eureka and Crescent City as well. And it's a beautiful district, and it's in the northern part, it is very separated, so there is a lot of driving involved. And so whenever I've gone up there, I've tried to meet with as many organizations and pack things in. And I really have a real respect for the various service organizations that help to meet the needs where the governments, the local governments, have had challenges. And so really connecting with those organizations to know what those challenges are, to understand the funding models of those, because as their representative, I want to continue to make sure that they survive.
When you talk to the people, either in, I guess, San Rafael or Petaluma or Willits or wherever you're going, is there a common thing that you hear from a lot of them about, hey, I'm running for Congress, and they say, well, I want you to do this, that, or the other thing?
Well, depending upon the community, they have environmental concerns that they're really focused on and fighting for, or they have justice issues that they're concerned about and they're fighting for. So many people are facing the economic challenges and distress, and so I've really been focusing on what I see is the ultimate need that we have to face before we can really start to see economic recovery, and that's the mortgage crisis and holding the banksters accountable. And that is something that ties all of these communities together. Everyone has been affected by this, whether they've been a homeowner, a renter, serving their community in local government or in nonprofits as a volunteer. And people are facing those challenges because of what's happened to this entire nation.
I read your website. You're actually on Wikipedia, too. I don't even know if you know that. And noticed that one of what I perceived your passions to be was technology.
I do have a love of technology.
and you've had a small business as a web designer. How do you take your passions and sort of implement them if you become a congressperson, Congress member?
Well, I'm very interested in technology. I'm interested in science, technology, engineering, and math, both as a curriculum and as the next wave of workforce needs that we have in this country. And so I've been very focused through American Association of University Women to encourage women and girls to enter those fields and to provide access to those through some programs that we have. And I've been working with people in the technology field and in both social media and in the coding per se, and so I have a very good sense of that environment and that culture, and want to take that knowledge with me to DC. We have quite a technologically based and manufacturing based community, which manufacturing these days relies more and more on technology, good software. Protocols are very important, and so I'd like to be able to represent the nation on the science, technology, and space committee, and I think that would be something that would be a good fit for me, and as an environmentalist to be able to look at the challenges that we have around technology and making sure that when we're doing technology, we're doing it sustainably.
So ultimately there's a political race, and there are a lot of players. Some of them have previously been elected like you have. Others have never been elected to anything, any position before. There's a whole lot of money that's going to be coming in the race. You alluded to it before. What do you see, or who do you see as your natural constituency here in the new district? And how do you put a coalition or a winning coalition together to get the nod, or get to November at least? Yeah.
Well, as I said, I'm running a right-sized campaign. I started this campaign out doing 30 to 40 hours a week dialing for dollars. And my consultants said that, I would continue this once I was elected. And for me, that was an eye-opener that, this is part of the gridlock that exists in DC and in Sacramento. And it's something that has to shift if we're going to see real change. We need representation that is going to represent the people's needs and not the political players and financiers' needs. And so that's what I continue to hear, is a real frustration about those breakdowns in D.C. and Sacramento. And so I think that I've really hit a nerve in right-sizing my campaign. I'm not spending hours on the phone anymore. I'm just out in the communities, in the district, meeting people, talking to people, letting them know that I'm a fighter and I have a history and experience and heart to get the job done. And that's really resonating. And so it's really about them taking that information and sharing it with other people. And then we're exploring the new paradigm and how to run an election right-sized and without a lot of funding. Because if we're going to change and we're going to move to public financing, we need to do it responsibly and effectively and efficiently with minimal dollars.
You know, I once had the opportunity to speak with Congressman McCloskey, who represented a district here in California for about 16, 18 years in Congress. He was telling me during the conversation I had with him that, gee, it wasn't until he was there 8, 10, 12 years that basically anyone paid attention to him and he was able to accomplish things. I want you to imagine that you're running for your 5th or 6th term, and you're telling us what you've accomplished. What would you like to be able to tell me that you were able to have accomplished in Congress those years?
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the challenges is that we need to address the financing, and I think that with this estimate of 60% turnover in Congress this year, there's many people that are retiring and many people that are going to be unseated. We're going to see a shift in terms of how long it takes people to be able to gain that seniority, to be able to be on committees and be in those decision-making roles. So I do think it won't take quite as long, but in order to really be successful, we've got to deal with this economic crisis. We've got to get money out of politics and hold the banksters accountable so that we can move forward and begin to create jobs and rebuild our economy and continue to grow jobs in manufacturing in the United States.
Well, in a couple of weeks from now, people are going to be going to the ballot, and they're going to be, you know, writing their little check mark next to name. When they go into the booth and they're thinking about you and making up their mind, what do you want them to remember about you so that it helps them fill your name in, fill a little bubble next to your name?
That I am a hard worker. I work day in and day out for my community. I love my community. I love this new district, and I want to continue to fight for the needs of this district. And so when they see Tiffany Renee, they're going to know that they have a fighter in D.C. for them.
Well, Tiffany, thank you very much for coming here to Marin Voices and Views. I wish you the best of luck. My hat's off to you for putting your hat in a really rather crowded ring. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Roberts is a longtime Bay Area resident. He is a graduate of Lowell High School, San Francisco State, and obtained a master's degree in business from Loyola University. He has participated in numerous civic projects: president of the Citizens League, Strawberry Community Council, and Bel Air Flood District. Dan served in Vietnam as a Marine, attaining the rank of captain and leading 200 troops as a battalion commander. He is active in California Disabled Veteran Affairs and served as president of the California Disabled Veterans Alliance. Currently, he is president of Roberts and Ryan Investment Company. They're located in San Francisco. He is one of 2 Republicans in the 2nd Congressional District race. Dan, thank you for coming. Which brings up my first question. In today's environment, you hear people all the time knocking Congress. What made you decide you want to be part of that club?
Right, that's a good question, a fair question. If you look at the favorability ratings of Congress, they're probably in the teens or sub-teens at this point, maybe 13 or maybe even 9%. So you might ask yourself, why is Congress held in such low esteem? My answer is that the missions that they've been chartered to do, that is the spending and taxation, war and peace, they have done the worst. They've done the absolutely worst. The spending is out of control back there, and they're liberal progressives in Congress and at the administration don't have any answers to solve our nation's employment and economic problems.
Well, historically, at least Marin, Sonoma, parts of Mendocino County, one are on the more like the blue column, the Democratic column rather than the Republican column. You're running as a Republican.
Right.
It's got to be a little bit tough. The question that I have for you is, what message do you have to folks who are in the middle, are willing to consider a message that might not be just from a big Democrat? And what's the message that you have to say, come with me, let me help you move forward?
Yeah, two things on that. Number one, I am running, obviously, with the registrations out of balance, Republican versus Democrat, and there's a lot of undeclared independents, right? Big chunk of them, more maybe than Republicans.
My understanding, that's the largest growth party, if you will, is declined to state.
Right, right. Or no party preference is the new terminology for
I'm
that.
old. I'm old.
Okay, all right. I've learned a lot on the campaign trail. But essentially, my focus is going to be on the small business owners. I'm a small business owner. I know about regulation and taxes. And my focus, my litmus test would be on the families. I think the families, the middle-class families, they have suffered in the past, and they continue to suffer, and they will suffer more unless we cut the spending at a federal level, balance the budget, so that then we can cut their taxes. I don't think we can cut their taxes until we balance the budget or move towards a glide path to balance it. Focus on the family and on small businesses.
You know, one of the issues that's going on, obviously now, is imposed on your race is a race for the presidency of the United States, and there's a highly contested Republican side to that. And I hear time and time again on various TV shows and reading in the paper that the Republican brand is being damaged by what's going on. Are you hearing that in your race? And what do you say to people that this Republican brand is tarnished and not good?
That's a fair question. My answer to that is that I am running as a Republican, but I am running a post-partisan race, a post-partisan, non-partisan. I'm Republican, but I need the independents, and I need 3 to 5% of the Reagan Democrats to see my vision in terms of spending and the emphasis on the families and the small businesses. So I'm running a post-partisan race.
So then the question that I have is, should you be honored to serve, or elected and serve in the community, and you're sitting there on one of the benches in Congress, you become part of their caucus. I mean, how do you participate in some of the ideas that they may have that you disagree with? What does a person do?
Yeah, I think I'm good. My record shows, with my activism at the, I'm on a FINRA national board under the SEC, I'll be back there shortly, is that I can speak truth to power, and I'm not afraid of that. So there's a little of the C word, courage, in my background that I think more representatives ought to have, and I have it, courage and leadership, right? So that's what I'm going to do here.
I hear a lot from all sorts of people, Democrats and Republicans, that there are too many regulations. And those regulations have the effect of inhibiting business from coming to California, or tying businesses' hand, or making California not business friendly. And one of the things that I see when I hear about regulations, I think of them as rules. And people have rules. And if corporations want to be people, I think they should have rules too. For example, people shouldn't throw their trash in the street. Corporations shouldn't throw their trash in the streams. And you could go on and on with different analogies. I noticed on your website that you talk about the number of regulations and that there being too many regulations. What specific regulations do you look at and say, hey, that makes California bad for business, or that makes California bad because it's going to interrupt the stream of commerce?
Yeah, I grasp the question. My answer is that the progressive liberal establishment, both represented by she's still serving, Lynn Wilsey and others, and Nancy Pelosi, think that, in my view, that one more tax and one more regulation will solve our problems. And that's the situation we have now. And it's a well-established fact, by the way, and you should know in California, that we're losing businesses, right? So that's a demonstrated fact. They're going to Texas and Nevada and elsewhere where we have more business-friendly environment. But on a federal level, a specific is, if you look at the Frank Dodd bill, right, for financial recontrol, that is just a layer of bureaucracy upon layer with probably no impact, just more growth of government jobs. So that I'm going to spend my time on. If I have the voters' support, I will work on that to reduce the regulatory burden. I run a small business. It's in investments. I know the impact of regulations on my business and taxation on my small business.
So Dodd-Frank does talk about the financial industry.
Right.
Other regulations that you hear about talk about employment, for example. I mean, wage and hour issues. There was something in California, it's local, but there was a law that giving shade to workers in the valley, and they were saying, well, that's too much of a regulation, and these people are working 120-degree heat sometime or whatever. Yeah. Are there other issues other than Dodd-Frank that you would focus on in your time in Congress that you think have to be lessened or less burdensome?
Well, first of all, it's my view and others that the whole Obama administration, liberal progressive set, is that they want to move us off of carbon as an energy source, so that you have approaching $5 a gallon gasoline. So that's really a pressure on the family, isn't it? And I'm sure it's with their approval that this goes up, because they want us to drive less or buy $50,000 electric vehicles. Thank you very much. So the whole, if you look at that issue, moving us off carbon base is not going to work now, and it's not going to work probably for another 20 or 30 years, because the replacements are out there, but they're not fully developed. The solar power, wind power, tidal power, etc. Except for nuclear, I think they should foster more nuclear applications. I think there was one in Georgia recently, first one in years. Nuclear is a clean, produces very low-cost energy. The storage issue has to be answered, and I'll work on that when I'm back there. But those are a couple regulations I can think of.
I noticed on your website, one of the things that I was taken by, and the way you phrased it is, I found interesting that one of the platform pieces that you're concerned about and running on is a benign foreign policy. No wars of adventure, stop nation building. What does that mean?
That means that if the nation wants to go to war, then they should come to the Congress to declare that. I think wars of adventure, wars of opportunity, Iraq, for example, was a war of opportunity. It was sitting there, let's go attack them. That never was declared a war. And the problem, if you don't, my experience is that, having come back from Vietnam, which is an undeclared war, right? When you come back, sometimes the politicians forget to keep the faith for the veterans, right? So the infrastructure is not there to help the veterans. I can talk about Agent Orange and its ramifications and other diseases that came, and it's coming now from Iraq and some of these dumps, So I'm saying go to the Congress before you enter a war.
And with regard to nation building, are we still nation building over there?
I think we've forgotten the lesson that we cannot make the world safe for democracy. That seems to be on when you have that, what I call an addictive elixir that they drink back there. They try these things, and it's just costly in terms of lives and treasure, right? And actually, I think my vision is that once we extract ourselves from Afghanistan, I think it'll revert to a tribal culture, and same with Iraq. So we won't gain a lot, but we'll have lost a lot of lives and treasure along the way.
I get the impression, talking to you, that you have a lot of passions, and both professionally and other interests. What passions would you want to advance as being a member of Congress, and how do you see that going forward? Is there a particular interest or committees or someplace you'd like to serve?
No, I'd address it another way. My background comes from a family with very modest means. My dad worked as a warehouseman for the public school department in San Francisco his whole life. My mom never worked, right? And she raised 3 boys. on one salary, right? So in the 50s and the 60s, a dollar meant a dollar, right? Now it's 10 cents. It's 10 cents. So you're talking about pressure on families, right? That's a big part of it. That's why the wage rate will never keep up with the anticipated inflation. And this government is going to, they are starting to inflate their way out of this debt. Do you know that? They are going to have another stimulus package, and they're going to start buying some more government bonds to pump more money, to make money out into the economy. So that creates cost pressures on everything that we want to buy, right? And the wage rate will never keep up with that. So it's an additional pressure on the family. That's my background, my take on it.
We're going to be, the folks here in the 2nd District are going to be going to the ballot in a couple of weeks. And they're going to have a whole slew of candidates to take a look at. And someone's going to have to pick up a pen and draw their little mark in one of the bubbles. And I assume you want it to be the bubble next to your name.
Right.
When people are going into the ballot box and they're going to think about who to vote for, what do you want them to remember about you and think about when they draw the mark on your name? Right,
and I hope they do. And I need all the Republicans, a substantial portion of the no party preference or independent, and I need 3 to 5% of the Reagan Democrats to come to a program that has real answers for our vision today and not more spending. The government does not create jobs. Private enterprise creates real value-added jobs. So that's, if they'll remember that I have different answers and different solutions, and plus the leadership and the experience, right, that I think that they will come to me.
You know, you mentioned putting together your coalition of your constituents to get to a victory.
Right.
This is a new sort of election. It's a 2-tier election where the top 2 folks move on to November. Has that changed the way you've been campaigning?
It will, and it has to some degree. Early polling shows, actually, by the 2 Democratic leaders, that I should make, if I stay with the solid conservative base and attract the others, that I should make the top 2. That's the presumption, right? And then I'll go into the national election.
Well, I'd like to thank you for coming to Marin Voices and Views.
Yes,
come back at any time. If you certainly come back as a congressman, I hope if you're elected, you'll join us again.
I promise that, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and good luck to you in your race.
Good. Thank you very much.